Hi everyone, Limor is here and welcome to From a Woman to a Leader podcast. This podcast is dedicated to discussing women's unique challenges in the tech industry, and I'm your host, Limor Bergman Gross. I'm a former director of engineering. I used to work in corporate for over 20 years, started my career as a software engineer and grew into leadership positions. And today I coach leaders in tech, mainly women. That's my passion. And that's kind of the motivation why I started this podcast. And really, the goal of this podcast is to focus on women in tech and support women in tech career progression. So, today I wanted to dedicate a solo episode. Actually, I'm going to record a few of those to discussing things that I keep see repeating in my coaching sessions about women in tech that want to progress in their careers. Typically, what happens, and it happened to me as well, that we tend to think that we need to do a good job and someone will basically notice the work we're doing and recognize us for that. And as a result, we'll get promoted. I wouldn't say it never works, but it doesn't always work. For me, it worked at the beginning when I was starting as an engineer to some degree. I mean, I didn't have to do much and I was promoted. But as I grew to a certain level, it stopped. And then I remember that I got a phone call one day. I was traveling to North Carolina to a client and I was there for work and I got a phone call from my manager and my manager told me happily, "Hey, Limor, I'm so happy. I wanted to tell you, I mean, right now, do you want to wait until you come back? That you got promoted to a staff engineer." And I was very honored and excited from getting this phone call and being promoted. But then I started to think, am I actually happy about it? Is that what I want? The reason was that staff engineer was where the career path kind of diverged. One path was the IC path, where you continue on the technical route of being an individual contributor, growing as an expert, as an engineer. And the other path was leadership, was engineering management, director, VP, and so forth. And that's where the path split. Either you go to be a staff engineer or you go to be an engineering manager. No one asked me, and they just promoted me to a staff engineer. And I'm not saying that because I'm bitter or I want to blame someone. I'm sharing that because this is exactly what I wanted to talk about today. It is so important to be first intentional about your career and figure out what it is actually that you want. Because it took me, getting promoted to something that I wasn't sure I wanted to figure out that that's actually not what I wanted. And then 3 more years or 4 more years even to actually get to engineering management. So how do you know what you want? I mean, this is sounds like an easy question, but the answer is not always easy. And I have a lot of women that I work with and also women ERG groups that we discuss those topics. Career path. How do you know what you want? And it's hard. You don't always know. I'll tell you a secret based on my experience. There is a lot of times more than one answer. It doesn't have to be one answer only, and you can change your mind along the way. That's okay. You don't have to decide everything right now. But if we're talking about kind of IC versus management, how do you know? So I'll share with you, what was for me back then, the way that I realized that I wanted to become a manager. So first of all, I had a role model. I had several good managers, several not so good, but one of the managers I had that really impacted me was a role model for me. I looked up at him as someone that I really kind of, first of all, really respected. And also, I thought, I really want to be like that person. And he was my manager when I was just starting out. I mean, I was relatively a young engineer. But I looked at him, it wasn't really clear for me how like the distance between where I was in my career to where he was seemed so big, seemed many years apart. But when I looked at him, I said, I want to be doing something like him. I want to be able to do something like he's doing. So, first of all, look for role models, and it doesn't have to be something very tangible. Even if your role model is someone that will take you years to get to, at least you have a North Star. You know where you want to go. So that's the first thing. The second thing was that I started thinking about back then, as I said, I mean, I was promoted to a staff engineer. And okay, let's think about what is expected from me next if I want to stay in that path and grow as a staff engineer. So the path was becoming a senior staff. And what was required to become a senior staff? So you need to be very expert in a specific area, maybe to write blog posts, to be in conferences, like there were a lot of requirements. It was not very easy. The leap from a staff to a senior staff at the company I worked for back then, Sun Microsystems, it was a big leap. It was really difficult to move from a staff to a senior staff, and you really had to prove yourself as an industry expert. And when I was thinking about it and what was required for me in order to get there, I kept doubting whether that was what I really wanted, and also whether that's actually where I shine the most. And it's not that I thought that I'm not capable. Yes, I had some doubts, but it's not about thinking, am I able to do it or not? Because probably if I really wanted, I could. It will take a lot of effort, obviously, and proving myself, but it was more about, did I want to do that? And it wasn't really clear to me that that's what I wanted. And I had colleagues. I remember one colleague of mine that he was a staff engineer. He was much more senior than me. And he really wanted to become a senior staff. And it was clear to him that that's what he wanted. And he worked towards that. It was not easy. So I looked at him and I said, well, I can see why that's what he wants, but that's not really what I want. You see? So role model is one thing, and another thing is like maybe looking at people at the path that you're thinking about it and thinking, do I want to be like that person? And the answer for me was clear, no, that's not what I wanted. The other thing, I looked at the things I enjoyed doing, and I really enjoyed working. Back then, I was working a lot with clients, and I enjoyed the interaction with clients and making them happy with the work we're doing. I enjoyed working with different people and collaborate. And I felt I really wanted to work more leading something. And I looked, after actually what happened back then, I started looking for leadership opportunity. And I also want to emphasize one thing, the distinction between leadership and management, because those are two different things. So you don't have to be a manager in order to be a leader, and not every manager is a leader. I repeat, you don't have to be a manager in order to be a leader, and not all managers are leaders. So you can lead even if you're just starting out. And leadership is solving problem no one else is solving, is doing something that is above and beyond, looking at things differently, and management, like, this is a role, but not all managers are leaders. Some managers use a lot of their authority and they're not really exercising leadership the way I look at, how a leader should be. Because leaders shouldn't tell people what to do, rather than people follow a leader because they really believe in that person and they respect that person. So I was looking for leadership opportunities, and the first leadership opportunities I got was working with clients and leading engagement with clients. At first, it was just me doing all the work. Later on, I started working with additional one person. And although it wasn't like big, right? I mean, it was just me most of the time, or maybe me and another engineer. Still, I enjoyed the responsibility. I enjoyed the challenge of leading the discussion with the client, maybe sometimes handle difficult conversation. And that's where I realized that really what I wanted in my career was actually to lead teams. So, going back to where I started in this episode, before you even start thinking about your career progression and building a plan and executing on a plan and so forth, it's very important that you take the time and think about what do you really want? What do you really want to achieve? Another aspect is that I want to share, other than what I shared so far about role models and looking like at the path and looking forward, what you think, each path is going to look like and whether you want it or not, is looking also inwards at your strength, at your achievements, and thinking, where do you feel the most, that you shine the most and you bring the most value? And for me, it was like I felt I'm really good with people and I'm handling different kind of personalities and I'm really able to work well with people. And the technical skills, I felt I'm good. It's not that I felt I'm bad, but I didn't feel that's where I shine the most. And you can get feedback. I mean, feedback is very important. Always seek feedback from your manager, from your peers, from stakeholders, from different people. What do they see in you? So it's really important to also identify like areas where you feel like you really shine and you bring the most of yourself, the best of you. And I felt that I bring the best of me with, you know, handling with people. Obviously, it was all technical related, but interaction with people. And the next thing would be your passion. Like, what are the things that you really enjoy doing, and what brings you the most fulfillment? And I like solving technical problems, but I felt like really a sense of accomplishment when I was able to solve some conflict with a client. So those are kind of aspects for you to think about, and tell me in the comments if you have any questions about that chapter. And I will publish more episodes on that. So this is part 1, and I will publish more episodes on that, on how do you start taking a proactive approach toward your career, because this is where I feel many women fail, me included, and not also men, to be honest, is once you are intentional about what you really want, which is step 1, is actually being proactive about it. And we're going to talk more about it in the next episode. So, 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 thank you so much for listening for me today. Feel free to comment, ask any questions you have, share it with people you think it's going to be valuable for. Subscribe to my podcast. And I'll see you soon in the next solo episode on career progression and being proactive about your career. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.